Afternoon, everybody. We are starting bang on time. It's 2:30. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Tara Dimel from Education Forum Sri Lanka. My colleague, Dr. Sujata Gamage, both of us started this facility nearly a year ago because so many new people are joining us. I just thought I'd run through a very brief introduction as well. The aim of starting Education Forum Sri Lanka was really to create a platform to facilitate policy reforms in education through policy dialogues and debates. Debates we have not had yet. We are planning to start with some students very soon. So as most of us know, education policy formulation.
Okay. One note karna. Sorry.
Education policy formulation is usually dealt with by government, like the National Education Commission, Ministry of Education, NIE, and so on. It's very rare that external inputs are taken into consideration. So we thought, let's kind of start a trend and create a platform where such inputs can be used, because I'm sure it can be useful in different ways. So we've had several policy dialogues so far during the last 10, 11 months, from early childhood education to curriculum, examinations, assessments, university education, and so on. So for all of those, we've had a key government representative from the ministry, relevant ministry speaking, together with other people. So we have the same situation today, where we have a key government official who is going to make a main presentation, and we have two others from the private sector. So today's policy dialogue is also significant because we are immediately in the aftermath of COVID, and distance education with internet-based learning became a hot topic, as you know, during that period. Let me quickly introduce the speakers to you and the program structure and format. So we are going to start with Professor Kapila Perera. He is the Secretary to the Ministry of Education, formerly the Vice Chancellor of the University of Moratuwa. So Professor Kapila is going to talk to us about the master plan for ICTs in education. He will start around 2:40 and take us up to 3 o'clock. Next, we have Mr. Indika Zoysa. He's the Vice President, Enterprises Business Group, Huawei Technologies. I hope I pronounced your designation correctly. He will take us through a presentation on digital infrastructure from 3 to about 3:15. Mr. Hasitha Dela will come next. He's the CEO of Headstart. He will talk to us on integrating IT into education. His presentation will go on from about 3:15 to 3:30. So we have these three guest speakers, and Dr. Sujata will respond to them after that, and she will also make her own comments and input on this topic. We are privileged to have two very experienced and very capable rapporteurs who have joined us today from Cogitaro.com. They are Mr. Niresh Eliatambi, and we have Dr. Ruan Dias. They've been with Education for Forum Sri Lanka for a few months now. They've supported us with rapporteuring and also making their individual presentations. So I'm really grateful for what they have been doing in terms of the work at EFSL. So before our first speaker starts, I just want to kind of paint a landscape on what we are discussing today. So we are talking of digital infrastructure for integrating ICTs into education. So we have integrating ICTs into education on the one hand, and on the other hand, including IT as a subject in the curriculum. These cannot replace one another. They need to go in hand. But what we've done so far, at least we've put our focus so far, is to include ICT as a subject in the curriculum for some decades now. But integrating ICTs in a kind of a universal fashion has generally taken a backseat, in my opinion. So in that context, our discussion on digital infrastructure and its equitable access, how equitable is digital infrastructure and the universality of it in terms of Sri Lankan school-going children, and how do we bridge that gap? So we've talked about this for decades, and the current situation in relation to access to internet, the access to devices, it has been quite dismal. And we discovered this recently when we were faced with the problem of COVID, and when we found that it was difficult to switch seamlessly to online education. And Yuresha is going to show us now a chart which represents a study done by Learn Asia in 2018, which gives some very important information. It was quite startling, to say the least, when we started looking at it, when the government was trying to bring in online education, soon after schools closed on the 20th of March. So this chart describes accessibility to computers and other devices and internet in households where there are school-going children. So we could even share this with you. It will be on the video after the presentation is over. But in summary, you find that just about 37% of homes with school-going children had access to internet. And you find just about 26% had access to the devices like a PC, a laptop, a tab. And about 48% only had access to a smartphone. So this is something we need to take very seriously, because Sujata mentioned a moment ago, the statistics on these lines in Nepal, for example, are much better than ours. So there are many things that we need to discuss on that. So we are still here with accessibility to internet of just less than 40. So that's a serious thing to take note of. The other point that I just wanted to place before everybody is whether we could also look at access to IT, ICTs, and the quality of education. Children with more access to internet and devices, can we look at the quality of education and how they perform in relation to equitable access once again? And can that be something we need to look at when preparing master plans for ICTs? Finally, like I mentioned at the beginning, COVID exposed us to what we didn't have, which was the ability, like Singapore did, to seamlessly transit from face-to-face education inside a classroom, when the child is stuck at home, to immediately be able to switch to internet learning and online education. So that's something Sri Lanka could not do, and that has really made all of us open our eyes. I had a very quick look at what other Asian countries did apart from Nepal. Kerala was a good case in point, which has a literacy rate that is actually above us, but very similar to us in terms of others like demographics. They too witnessed a broad digital divide, but they swiftly went into action, led by the chief minister of that state. Not only did they start telecasting online classes, they had a variety of other initiatives to bridge this digital divide they had, even by supplying dongles and laptops to areas which did not have access to internet. And of course, other things like providing fiber optic projects together with the private sector. A quick look at Malaysia. Malaysia, although economically they are far ahead of us, just about 15% of school-going children had access to devices like PCs and laptops. There again, although the internet access was there, their internet speed was deficient. So that too interfered in the delivery of online education the way they expected it to during COVID. So with that, I'm going to pause and I'm going to invite our first speaker, Professor Kapila Perera, who is the Secretary Minister of Education, who will hopefully give us the government viewpoint, and we could have a glimpse of a master plan for IT and how the government intends to move forward on the areas that I spoke of. Thank you very much. Over to you, Professor Kapila.
Thank you very much, madam. Good afternoon to everybody. So I'm going to share my screen. So this is an opportunity for me to again see, Dr. Mrs. Tara Demel, it is a coincidence that last I met her during tsunami, where I was the NARA chairman and the Director General of, Director of Institute of Technology, University of Moratuwa, NDT program, where she had hands full as a Secretary Education. So we met only once at a meeting in the Ministry of Higher Education, number 18 Ward Place, where she invited Mrs. Malini Piris as a secretary, additional secretary, where she brought union students, and I was asked to come with my union students. And that year we had tsunami, and we are meeting just in COVID now. So this is something take you to take you back to the memory lane. That is a light note, but I was very passionate about her vision and her leadership for ensuring everybody will, Sri Lankan youth and Sri Lankan as a whole will pick up our all glory. We want to be have a high little, and now the challenge is not only English, spoken English for that matter, leave alone the Shakespeare type, literature, grammar and everything, writing skills, reading comprehension, listening comprehension, etc. Now, on top of that, we have IT. So it's a English literacy plus IT literacy. So this is a presentation made up by Ministry of Higher Education. None of these slides belong to me. It's just so happened the day she called me while I was going to work, and I basically want to learn from the people who had sweat in this ministry for years and years. I am just a spokesperson today, so I would give gratitude all the slides and material to the ICT division led by Mr. Hemanta of this ministry, Mr. Neil Gunasena, and all those who have put it together. So I have been given the task, I have been tasked to finish this by 3 o'clock. Madam, please forgive me because I will not take it long. I'll really go through quickly. I'm on time usually, but I may have to leave early this meeting, right? That's right. Okay, thank you. Right. So the vision is to digital bridge through education, mission, knowledge-based society through information and communication technology education. So basically the major activities in ICT in general education, first up is the ICT education and services. Then ICT in education, value-added ICT initiatives and digital the education and the transformation. So these are the key things that we have, digital education transformation. So I'll go quickly. This slide sums up what is the core business of ICT in general education. If I recap, take you again, ICT education and services under which computer resource centers, establishment, school ICT labs. This is basically where we have come. The initiative, school ICT labs, ICT courses for teachers and school leavers, then GIT, general IT subject, O-level ICT subject, A-level ICT subject, ICT for grade 6 to 9. So this is what we have, but we will intend to do go from 1 to 5 even. Then dedicated ICT National Colleges of Education, about 5,000 ICT teachers, internet connections for 3,500 schools, hardware and network solution team for school level support. Then ICT in education, ICT literacy for non-ICT teachers. These are the devices, OLPC program for 1,700 students with 1,000 interactive content and devices. E-Taksalawa, learning content management system, national e-learning portal, national level content development team, NANASA education program with 2,000 video content, 2,200 schools with NANASA TV connections and 4 channels. Then value-added ICT initiatives, school ICT society, cybersecurity awareness for students and teachers, IT BPO awareness, coding initiatives, national level ICT competition, international experience for ICT teachers, private-public partnership programs, ICT skill development program for ICT and non-ICT teachers, National Education Management Information System, that is NEMIS, then a digital education transformation, eTaxla content and learn management system platform content repository with grade 1 to 5 content, grade 10 to 11 content, grade 12 content. I'll show you a little later the progress of this one. NANASA program expansion from grade 6 to 9, providing TV for all provincial level schools with grade 6 to 11, video content for English and science and maths subjects content from NIE, ICT hub initiatives with national colleges. Then the approach is five-pronged, that is digital infrastructure development, connectivity, content, capacity building, innovation. Basically, it revolves around these three: digital policy for what we want to achieve, digital policy for general education, digital master plan, sustainability mechanism. So these are basically the ICT education, curriculum, human resource, capacity development, training. Then ICT in education, e-learning systems, digital literacy, content repositories, ICT services, hardware, software, lineware connectivity. Then this is ICT enabled environment in Ministry of Education. The National Education Management Information System, NEMIS, Student Information System, Ministry of Education, internal hardware and network facility. Basically, we are going to repair our own things at a low cost. Ministry of Education website, others, all systems required for internal administration, document management system, teacher transfer system, scholarship handling, etc. So in school system, we have 10,167 schools, then zonal 99, then provincial in all 9 provinces, then all 19 national colleges of education, teacher centers. These are zonal ICT centers, 100, then provincial ICT centers. So this is basically the landscape of what is ICT at the moment in the school system. The responsibilities basically revolving around ICT branch, data management branch, then implementing bodies, the beneficiaries, basically schools, zonal, provincial, national colleges of education, teacher centers, national institute of education, examination department, Ministry of Education, internal branches. So responsible for by Education Quality Development Division, headed by Additional Secretary Mr. Hemantha Prematilaka, supported by his staff, Planning and Performance Review Division, School Activities Division, Administration and Finance Division. So basically, these are the main themes: ICT education, ICT in education, ICT services, connectivity devices and maintenance, e-content and including learning material development and system development, technology-based innovations. So this is basically the present ICT education, the curriculum, human resources, capacity development and training. This I will not go through each of this one, but the last one, continuous ICT subject training, refreshment train, that is refresher courses, foreign training with collaborative agreements, then unimotic degree program. That is the culmination. The ICT curriculum implementation, the progress in 2004, the milestones, the JIT A-level, GC A-level, general information, then GC O-level as a subject in 2006, and this is the progress of the numbers of students set from 2008 to 2019. This is number passed as a percentage. Then GC A-level right here on the table here in 2009. Information and communication for GC A-level since 2009. Then A-level technology stream, ICT, information and communication technology for GC A-level technology stream since 2013. So since 2018, grade 6 to 9. So we are going to extrapolate that from grade 1 to grade 5 in future. These are the human resources, 4,500 ICT teachers, Ruanpura National Colleges of Education as a dedicated. Out of the 19, we have dedicated this National College of Education, which will be upgraded to a degree awarding status, all 19. So as per the Saubhagya Dakma, that is going to be happening, just to give some recognition. So you have a degree because it's a 3.5 3 years program. So ICT, IES, then Sri Lanka Education Administration IT cadre, provincial and zonal ICT subject officers. So capacity development, like I said before, these four, we are having the continuous ICT subject up to Unimotech degree program. Then ICT in education, we have e-Taksalava, the device e-Taksalava Learning Content Management, National e-Learning Portal, e-Taksalava Learning Management System, National Level Content Development Team. So online short courses with certificate, learning material, e-library, online exam, GIT online exam, etc. Online registration by the students for the O-level, A-level, online past papers, online competition, module-based content, virtual classes, video conference facility. Then NANASA education program with 2,000 video content, 2,200 schools with NANASA TV connections and 4 channels. NANASA expansion for deprived school projects from 2021. That is going to be new initiative. Then special projects, Guru Gather Education Channel, dedicated education Rupawahini, dedicated education radio service, teaching with devices, feature phones, then motivate provincial level online learning, 1,377 student support help desk. So that is ICT in education. Then we have the online platforms, educational apps, then educational electronic media, distance learning education, NANASA satellite education channel, Guru Gather, proposed radio service, proposed TV. So we have the LCMS, Learning Content Management System, and a Learning Management System on the online platform. So we have NANASA and so forth, the educational apps. Then this is the progress so far. e-Taksalava, LMS and LCMS, Learning Management System, Learning Content Management System. So by 2020, we have 40 million progress of the users in e-Taksalava. This is 2019, 2018. Then average concurrent user per hour, 5,000. Total is 34 million. Average is per day, 3 to 4 million. Average visitors pay 25 per day, 25,946. Then Sri Lanka is way above United States, China, and India and Singapore with with regard to the daily content activity. So this is the learning content management system which I described earlier. What is in there? This is content progressing Sinhala and Tamil. Then this is in a nutshell about the learning management system benefits for students, access to information at any time, anywhere, centralized and authorized information, then increase communication, motivation in learning process, study become more enjoyable, time saving. Again, benefits for the teachers. So you have different groups of study, students study independently without inferring, I'm sorry, maybe not readable here. A personalized approach to each student, increase engagement and students collaboration, flexibility, a room for pedagogical experiments and innovations, unlimited tracking data and unlimited customization opportunities, then parents' involvements, benefits for schools, solution for teacher deficiency, managing teacher relief period, unlimited tracking data, parents involved, benefits for zone and the province Ministry of Education organize e-learning content in one location, provides unlimited access to e-learning material, reduce learning and development cost, easily tracks learner progress and performance, integrates social e-learning experience. So for all 9 provinces, 99 zones and 2,847 A-level schools. You can see the learn management system, glossary, external tools, interactive tutorial, basically this describes book, file, folder, zone, and so forth. So this is learning management system benefits for each user. So we have science, the progress, then the commerce and technology and arts. So I think we are all passionate about the non-technical people. This is social sciences and humanities, although it's called arts. So right now the focus is how to inculcate or infuse or bring IT culture, IT equip this group of students, both school level and at university level also, to empower them with IT and English. So that is, there's going to be an ambitious plan for this one, because these groups anyway will pick up science, commerce, and technology. So you can see the data here. Then NANASA TV, 4 channels, grade 10, grade 11, Discovery Science. I think the credit should go to Madam Chandrika and Dr. Mrs. Tara Demel for this Discovery Channel introduction. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, you can see the coverage with dialogue, the contribution by the dialogue, channel management, providing transponder space, managing the NANASA channels and production of content. So I recently had a discussion with Huawei, and Mr. Indika Zoysa actually brought, and they have introduced some of their services. So we will blend those also into our activities, future activities. So this basically the connectivity. We talked about the connectivity, how we found out difficulties, just like the tsunami came, the PASCO came, and then during the struggle of 30 years, and right now with COVID, we have lots of lessons learned for us to get our improvements and pull our socks, basically. What problems that we associate and how best we can blend this online and ICT facilities to provide access at any crisis situation. The dedicated TV and radio channel. So the current status is there. I need not go through this one. So we are going to get VHF and UHF channel. So we are in negotiation with the TRCSL, Telecom Regulatory of Sri Lanka. Then ICT Hub video, we have this one. So this is being negotiated. This is the present status. So this is going to be a 35 million total estimate. So we are going to have National Content Development Center construction and equipment training. So this is on the cards, but we are just putting a hold. The government will review this project where we are going to have a National Content Development Center, and then it will trickle down to the provinces and zones. We will see these are called PICTEC, that is the Provincial ICT Education Center. SICTEC means the Teacher and Student ICT Training. This is National Content Development Center, e-learning content production, educational video production, content production management, plan, develop, review, validate, and approve. Then PICTEC and the SICTEC teacher training. ICT teaching. These are the major components under this one. So it will trickle down to the provinces and the zones. So these are for the secondary school ICT training. So that is this is going to get the NANASA and the ISAKTLA will be benefit from the video content and the e-learning content. Then managing the crisis and strategies to manage during COVID-19. I need not go through this one. These are basically every organization faced with this one, how we use what is existing platforms, existing facilities to cater to our students during COVID. So these are the 4 major units that we have. I will also not go through this one. This is available on our website, how the ICT division is broken up, and there will be future plans also. These are the ICT services, the hardware and network solution program, software development program, connectivity. We have TAP projects. Then we have the digital literacy, cyber security, SICTEC and PTEC. So I just described about this one. This is a TAB project that we are giving tabs to schools, student tabs and the teacher tabs, and then pretty soon we will get the last batch of tabs for 96,000 tabs for the students and the RACs as well as for the teachers. And this time we are going to use tabs to speed up the process of submitting marks from different regions, different provinces. By the O-levels, we will provide them with a tab and they will enter data into the tab. We will completely do away with the manual system. This time we will give tabs, 1,500 tabs to the marking centers. Right then and there, they will submit the marks with these tabs. And these tabs are not equipped with the internet connection, but we will provide them with the Wi-Fi routers, because these are is going to be for the students. That was finalized yesterday. The procurement will go to this cabinet. So establishment of computer hardware, basically the solution is to make sure that we save public money, and we have a program started in 2007. You can see from this picture sums everything. We teach teachers, the trainers, how to repair this equipment. That is also a big problem. So we want to do is in-house. Then ISRO Linux, free and open source software, customized with an appropriate education software suitable for schools. This has been remastered by the ICT branch of the Ministry of Education with the help of FOSS community, and made available to the general education system with a view of providing more opportunities to enhance equity education. So new version that is 2004 is ready for development. Basically, you have this open source software that is customized for software development. Then internet connectivity for schools. So this is the new plan, fiber-based connectivity for schools with the support of the TRC. So we are going to look into this one, improve the connectivity with the lessons learned from the COVID. Then national student information system. So what we are going to do is that we have already entered student personal details, guardian details, subject details, health details, and all 10,116 schools details added, basic details and the coordinates. So if you in future, what we hope to do is that we will all the issues of the school admissions, and then selecting people's abilities as they progress report cards, whether one person or one student is good at sports or extracurricular activities, good in mathematics. We want to identify through online. We have already done 3.6 million worth of data out of 4.2 million, you can see, and 3.6 already entered this type of data. So we are going to explore this one with the present minister's vision. We will start from the day one where the kid is born. We will enter, the details, health data, like the weight, things like that. We are going to have a discussion, and then basically we believe that you need to be a healthy person to do anything, and then you need to provide education. This education with the extracurricular activities, sports, and etc. So we are going to cooperate with 3 ministries together: Health Ministry, Education Ministry, and the Sports and Youth and Sports Ministry. So this is the Teacher Human Resources Management, that is NEMIS. So teacher transfer also will be handled. Because of the time, I will not go through. Madam, how many minutes that I have?
Actually, you have none.
Right.
Because
Okay.
you go short by 3
Right.
minutes. But Dr. Sujata would like to ask a quick question from you, since you're not going to be available for the discussion. Is that all right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
but how many more slides though? Can we just quickly go?
Basically, these slides, innovations that we have given, ICT related technology and innovation, partnerships, innovation camps, robotics, all children coding initiative. So the IoT, that is also we have introduced, then ICT societies. So this is the plan for 2020, 2025, that is future. The policy level approaches we will have, right? Then we have implementation approach. That is continuing, and then we have our achievement. That's all basically.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
thank you very much, Professor Kapila. Sujata, would you like to ask a quick question?
Yeah, quick question, Professor Kapila, is
Yes.
this is it's a challenge in ICT in education, because ICT education, it's easy to measure how many people take these courses, how many pass, and so on. But ICT in education, whether it's incorporated, it's very difficult. And what we have here is actually mostly supply side data, right? Yeah. But actually one good data set is how many people access the e-Takshilava. But that again is very centralized. I was wondering, and we are actually working on that as a research project as well, how do we get the demand side data? how is it actually received by the students? For example, one simple indicator would be we survey the students. Maybe actually the education department can actually get data for all the schools, for all the students, but at least a sample, how many in a given week, how many had access to a device? See,
yeah,
we have,
type of data I don't have offhand right now.
No,
but,
yeah. But I'm thinking whether we can develop a set of demand side indicators.
Okay. Right.
See, this is supply side.
Yes.
So, I mean, I can see a lot has been done. I haven't been to Itakshalava since, actually, I apologize for that, I should have checked it. Before, about a year ago, it was mostly PDF files of, textbooks. So I heard that they've added a lot more, but again, we are hearing from the supply side.
That's correct.
So it will be very nice. And I think we'll be happy to, we are working on that. We'll be happy to propose some simple demand side indicators so that you have an idea. Yeah. So you have an idea, you are spending all this money, taking this effort, how is it received at the, end of the pipe? So I think that would be something we could work together.
Yeah, that's a very good suggestion, madam. Like you said, we always can talk about and present what we have done. Whether how do you measure the benefits from the beneficiary side? So we will take it on board, and we will take this one as a good measure. So because we have some initiatives basically to Madam Thara Dimel talked about the equitable equity in everything, not only in this one. So we are going to find out what are the indices that you can have to measure the effectiveness of providing these services and supplies, whether it's going to be made. Because you and I, everybody on this Sri Lankan society will be asking, if students continue to go for tuition, what is the point of investment in supply of school infrastructure, school human resources, and are we going to continue with this trend, or are we going to really arrest the situation? And basically what strategies that we have to have without just penalizing, okay, you can't go to tuition and things like that. But we need to get our act together and identify from the demand side, what is it, why it is happening, and what is missing in our delivery system. So this is what we have in our mind. Personally, I have a mind-boggling question on this one to find out why is it? Why is it?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Kapila. Before I release you, Mr. Nilesh Eliathambi has one question, and to add to that, just from me, whether you have any idea, whether you all have any idea of bringing in some measure to assess digital literacy, at least in the senior school students, if not all. That's from me. Over to you, Nilesh.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Tara. Professor, that's very comprehensive. Thank you for that presentation. Now, these amazingly comprehensive programs that you describe are really great, but we are currently far behind our regional nations. And what's been holding us back, and are those constraints continuing? And it can't be simply a matter of funding, because countries like Nepal seem to be far ahead of us. So they have the same issues with funding. So is there some other, is it a technical situation, or just a lack of political will, or what could be the reason?
Yeah, I would say presently from the top, political will is for this one. There's absolutely no question when it comes to HE the president. This is his pet subject. So during Madam Chandrika's time, Dr. Tara is interested. That was that pet subject. Unlike in anything in the history, you would imagine that he is personally interested and progress reviewing and IT education, ICT education, English education is top of his agenda. That is, he has shown this one leading by example. After, I don't know, in my lifetime, I do not remember, except Dr. Tara's time, that they amalgamated some of the ministries, skills, education, higher education. This time, I think the approach is free early childhood education, the pre-school education, general education, higher education, skills development, the Dhamma Pirivena and the other, religious education, all are linked and then given one, basically in, military terms, one commander, cabinet minister, and then we have 4 or 5 state cabinet, state ministers, educational reforms, skills, innovation, and then the religious, this education, woman, female activities, education, higher education, all under one basket. So because linkages are important, there are so many acts. If you look at the TVET sector, tertiary and vocational education sector, I for one believe that we need to really understand before we touch anything, how many acts of parliament are there under TVET sector. I don't know. In 2007, I happened to be part of this one. I could not relate anything and everything. In my view, I think we need to recoin, rather than vocational training, we need to find a different word for vocational to give some stature, so that we will have this mindset of these are, discarded or the, lost people. So the more, these type of things are also initiated. So when it comes to the ICT literacy, as why we are behind, whether there's lack of investment, I don't think so. There is lack of political vision, I don't think so. It is just that we need to know why, what type of thing. That Dr. Sujata posed me the question, the prudent question. This is all fine, fantastic presentation, supply side. We need to find out in the demand side. So there we have to start. It's just like some years back, we were talking only about the electricity sector. We didn't have a demand side management system. So once the demand side management system was introduced to the energy sector, electricity sector, only we realized what type of problems, reliability, the cost, the quality of the power. So likewise, we need to have the this is a new thing that she gave me, new idea, demand side aspect. So we will have that one. I think we will start from there.
Thank you very much, Professor. There is one participant who has raised a hand for a question from you. Since we have to release you, I'm going to allow her, but that's it. Then we move on to the next presenter. Sumudu, could you ask Professor Kapila, please, your question? Sumudu, are you there? You had raised your hand. Okay. So we will now move on. Thank you very much once again, Professor Perera. It was a wonderful presentation. We got a thorough glimpse into the vision of the government, the vision of the president, and the vision of your minister. I think that is what we were aiming to get from you when we invited you. So thanks again. And I hope you will be in touch with us as we do our own little dialogues once in a way. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, madam. I think the credit should go to, like I said, nothing is mine.
Okay.
I just came in and just became a spokesperson. This done by the others.
That's right. Thanks so much.
Thank you, madam.
So with that, I'm going to invite Mr. Indika de Zoysa. We are 15 minutes behind, but we are going to catch up on that. Mr. Indika de Zoysa, can I hand over the platform to you? Your talk is on digital infrastructure.
Yes. Okay. I believe you can hear me.
Yes.
Clear? So I'm just sharing the screen. Hope that is okay, right? So I have few slides, which is I'll talk over that, and with the next 15 minutes or so. I think Professor Kapila gave a complete overview of what exactly been happening in the Ministry of Education, or what is the stock is been there, and some new plans which has been articulated with the new direction has been set up for digital education. So in the past also there had been quite a few initiatives has been taken. I think during your time also, Dr. Tara Debel, which is the digitization happened in the Asian Development Bank funding, which is coming in. The first computers were going into classrooms, and I was part of that on different ways. I have also experienced when the first PC goes to the school, what principal did was bring a big padlock and lock that room, because the principal was worried that, like, he will not able to get his pension out because it's a very expensive device. So that's from that era we have come a very long way. So we can't call it's good penetration, but we have a decent penetration in the education system. Kids are very familiar. The technology has been used for teaching learning process, right? So if I go through this is not like, which is a lot of people have seen this. It's about anywhere, anytime, self-learning, personalized learning, fair education. These are being practiced across the world. So this is where we are trying to achieve from a traditional blackboard to chalk to education, which is we want to use education or digital as a platform. How technology can be used, because you say you use IT, you teach IT as a subject, that's different. But here the more or less the focus has to be on right now, use technology and for teaching learning purpose. Like it can be of any subject like science, maths, whatever, the Buddhism, singular, maths, anything. So this is where kids are very excited. Even I have personal experience during the COVID time where my daughter was doing online studies, it was like a regular class from 7:30 in the morning to 12:30 in the day. But the online exams happened. So this is, we were privileged enough because we were in a Colombo school, but all the kids didn't had that experience. So they had the liberty of doing a lot of self-learning, personalized learning, all that can be used using technology. So technology provides you a great platform for that. But again, we need to think what exactly we need to look at. It's about our traditional classroom is all about one-way communication, more or less. So we need to look at what is we call the 21st century skills requirement. So we need to harvest that. We're talking about STEM education or STEAM education. So do that, we need to get into move to the student-centric learning model. So what Professor Kapila also spoke about, creating that infrastructure in the education system, because we have about 4.6 million students in the education system, 250,000 teachers, 10,000 plus classes, schools. So, and also now it's one large education ministry, which includes the higher education and vocational as well, which is higher education has non-state and state put together about 6,000 kids, and the vocational has about 250,000 kids. That's fairly a large amount which goes into the vocational sector. So how do you get these community together and create a more of a student-centric learning environment? Again, we talk about the lifelong learning has to come. Even things like the e-classrooms, digital libraries, because some of the books what is required, maybe you need to use these kind of tools, as example, a digital library, how you can share your content, how you can get the best of the content which is available. As example, we say you want to get journals or the books, which is all the kids can't buy it, but as centrally as a ministry we can buy that and we can keep it available, which is kids to refer it, right? And Dr. Sujata also mentioned about the e-Taksalawa, which is the PDFs available, but I think it has come a long way right now. During my tenure at ICT, also had the opportunity of getting involved and helping them to scale it up. So now even COVID time, we had a day about 4 to 5 million hits coming for a day. So lots of kids are accessing it, which is we can see that how this homegrown tool has been taken to the next level. Definitely certain things has to be touched on it, but it has a potential of growing into the next level. So looking at Professor Kapila also touched on these most of the things, it's clearly defined how the traction which is we are looking at, the smart nation or the vision which has been created, what we need to do on creating a smart nation, right? So there are 4 things which is talking about the government centric digital government, innovation hub, digital inclusive Sri Lanka, entrepreneurships. These are the skills what we are looking at. So this is what exactly we need to look at to compete in the global world. So you need to have a roadmap, or like, we need to have a direction which has to be drive this. So in about 2 months back, I think the day was 15th of July this year, which the president actually declared the decades of skill development, which is starting from 2021 to 2030. This is in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, and it's clearly defined 4 goals. Like, right now with the estimated unskilled labor, what we have, it's about 10%, sorry, 30%, which is to be reduced to 10% by 2025. Provide higher education opportunity to every student, which is we have about 350,000 kids getting into the school every year. But when you're looking at state, non-state, vocational, even professional courses, and the kids goes abroad, it's about 150,000 all put together. But 200,000 kids doesn't get any of these opportunities right now. And also create globally, like, scalable technocrats, which is you should be able to go to any market, anywhere, any part of the world to get into their job, and also position Sri Lanka as a epicenter for human resource development. So these, we need to look at the 3 areas I spoke: the general education sector, vocational sector, and higher education sector. Cumulative, we will have about close to 6 million students in this entire domains put together, which is, we can call it as the target audience. So which is, we have 10 years, that's possibly a generation of time. When somebody is at grade 3, 4 will be the time the kid will be out of the higher education era. And how exactly we can do that, what exactly we need to do that. And also we are talking about reducing the unskilled, and also, but they have, like, since I'm coming from a private sector, which is, we have a huge gap, which is, we need the production which is coming from the system. There's a huge skill gap. The skill set what the kids has versus what the private sector needs, there's a gap. So we need to first bridge that gap, because we need to make sure the skill sets are matched with the market needs, starting from the soft skills to working skills, all that. So as example, when you look at the survey which was done by ICTA last year, it talks about in 2020 they need 20,000 workforce or new workforce to be added into the system in 2020. But all the universities, state and non-state universities put together, we produce only 9,000. So that itself is an 11,000 gap, which is to the workforce which is coming in. But it doesn't mean that all the 9,000 are ready to go into the job. Some may go abroad, some may look at some alternate path. But that as an industry, ICT industry, which is, we are looking at the exports, which is focus, we have a huge shortage, because some of the companies are forced to take their operations to the other markets, which is, since we don't have the skill set. So even right now, the market, the export market on the IT area is about $1.2 billion, which is about 125,000 employees, which is right now there. But there's a goal which is they want to achieve $3 billion in 2024, which is, the staff requirement is about 300,000. But at the pace we go, it will be very difficult for them to achieve that unless we have accelerated program, which is that right skill set has to be identified, and that production has to come into the market. So if you look at how exactly we can do, like, all of us has been, or most of the people who are in this audience also would have been beneficiaries of the free education, what we call it, right? Which is introduced in the mid 1940s. Now, what is the next biggest shift is about, to include technology into it, because when you look at in mid 80s, we were graded very high with the literacy rate we had, right? Which is in mid 90s. But now, is that the indicator? No, it's the digital literacy, or like, how you can use technology, or what, those are the jobs which is available. So we need to do that change. So you need to bring the new tools like the online learning, blended learning, distance learning kind of tools has to be brought into the system, and you need to make sure that. So one of the goals which is we looked at was providing every kid a higher education opportunity. That doesn't mean we have to build universities physically. You can't put buildings and get, like, 350,000 into a university. But you need to use technology and using these kind of methodologies like online blended learning, and how the kids can get into these courses and do or get a degree. Even somebody who's in a job can do on the job, which is part-time, which is online, degree can be awarded. Because some of us on the city areas, which is do like a lot of MBAs and things like that using these kind of technologies. So this has to be trickled down into that. So most of the things Professor Kapila was talking about, it provides, or like, the plans are made to create that infrastructure and how the kids can be onboarded using these the technologies. So this is something which is I'll talk little in structure which is we developed during developed during my ICT time. So we need to look at what you're looking at the end of the day, achieving a smart nation. So we are here build 5 pillars exactly. So first thing is you need to have the digital infrastructure. That means you need to have devices in the hands of the kids and the teachers. So it can be a laptop, desktop, smartphone, any of these digital devices, they will be able to access it. Then you need to have proper connectivity across. So it can be form of 4G, 3G or Wi-Fi. And we need to keep in mind, especially when the large number of kids are accessing these kind of portals, the security aspects has to be considered because this has to be an environment with controls. So these devices has to be connected. And then the third one is the content. So Professor Kapila also spoke about the Taksalav, and there are a lot of content which is available globally, and some of them are localized to Sinhala and Tamil as well. So I think Hasitha will be able to talk a lot about this domain probably after me, because that's where he specialized on. So which is then you have the content which is connected, you have the devices. The other thing is, the biggest thing is our academics should be able to know, or they should have the skill of using technology and teach in the classroom. So this is, we need to have these 4 things seamlessly mapped and on the right way, and which is you will be able to take the technology downstream. And the 5th pillar is actually a little separated. That's that innovation one, which is we need to look at the STEAM education and the STEM education kind of things. We need to look at creating certain things like the maker spaces in the schools. So we had the traditional science lab in the school, then it moved to more of IT lab, but now modern world, you have an idea which is kids go to this maker space, you have your 3D printers, microbits kind of tools, they will be able to build gadgets and come up with innovation in these places. So to all that, we need to have a master plan which end of the day integrated all this, and end of the day we'll be able to achieve this smart nation. So that's how we need to look at how we can integrate all this. And I believe, which is we have made the plans as the government together, and hopefully we'll be able to reach these sooner. So thank you. So
very
that's
much.
all.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Indika. Your questions will be asked as per schedule when we enter the discussion stage. And thank you for starting your presentation on time. We have Mr. Hasitha Dela next. Your presentation is going to be on integrating IT into education, and you have 15 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. So before I do my short presentation, let me give you a quick introduction to us and myself and my organization. So we started in all these stuff when we were in the university. So we were at Moratuwa, and we have done maths for A levels, very tough times, and get into the university and you realize all these things you have done in 2 years, and maybe more than that in a more interesting manner you are doing in the university, which less struggle. So we thought of doing something to change or give some new ways of learning. This is 10 years back, okay, right? The e-learning was not a big thing. So we did a project called Vidunana, did the prototype, went to ICTA, that was our first presentation, and we got a grant. So we started this company with that, and we started working with ministry and all. So fast forward to the current time, now we have been doing a lot of work with the Ministry of Education, examination department, and we have our website called guru.lk, and we have a TV channel called Guru TV. And we had the great pleasure of working with some of the schools, both public and private schools as well. So since Professor Kapila and Indika have both given a very comprehensive introduction and the comprehensive framework Ministry of Education has given, what I thought is in next 10 to 15 minutes, I'll just share few insight, few learnings, few mistakes that I have seen when we are working with both public sector, private sector, and school sector for the last few years, right? So I just have 5 points, right? So I think I can finish those 5 points in 10 minutes, right? So the first point I thought is, when you're talking about integrating ICT into education, I think we are giving too much focus on ICT compared to the focus you should give to education and how we are going to define the education within the implementation of ICT. let me take it like this. Now, if you take right now, I think if you try to integrate ICT, we are doing that. The maximum, I think what we are doing is we're actually, in a way, giving better way of to memorize stuff and better way of doing examinations and all. So I think that's not actually what we should do and where we should go. So what I'm trying to get at, to get the maximum out of ICT in education, there should be proper education reforms. And I'm glad to see there's a dialogue going on. I have seen a lot of discussions going on with more learner-centric education, getting rid of the normal exam system. That is very important. And the other thing is, not only in the policy level, when you integrate ICT into education, even in the principals level or the teachers level, you have to take that seriously. Because we have seen, when we are working with these institutes and the schools and all, over and over again, we see the teacher and the principal always talk about how are we going to get the device done and how we are going to look at the connectivity and what's the platform. But what they don't think is how exactly our teaching is going to be with these tools that we are going to implement. I'll just explain that little more in my second point. So actually, Dr. Sujata also wanted me to touch a little bit on content and software, because that's what we are providing as a company. Now, for the last 10 years, we are having very high level discussions on importance of platforms, importance of content. But I think for us to go where we should have to go, we have to go a little deeper and have a deeper level discussions if you take content. Now, for example, you talk about content. You have to understand for what purpose you are going to use this content. You can use it for self-learning, you can use it for teaching aids, you can use it for different scenarios. In the computer lab, you have one type of content. When you are using content on an interactive whiteboard, it's a different thing. So different subjects, you have different type of content. So there should be more deeper discussion going into those lines. And when it comes to platforms, the platform should go in line with all the infrastructure you are going to have and your reforms you are doing in the education system. So, and the other thing I have to tell you is, sometimes if you don't plan this out properly, it might make these things worse. Because I have seen a lot of research papers done in other parts of the world, and I fully agree. Because sometimes, let's say, implementing just PowerPoint into a lesson can be much worse than chalk and talk. Because when you're having a blackboard with a chalk, you're actually interacting with the student when you're drawing and all. But then there's a bad habit of just having all these theories into a PowerPoint, just display that on the board. That's even make your teaching experience worse. So we have to be very careful in that. The point I want to make is we have to have deeper discussions there. And the other thing is, now when it comes to content development, apart from the software development skills, there should be skills in the creativity, especially the visualization. So one of the biggest things I see as a gap of the content developers in Sri Lanka is, before you develop the content, it's very important to visualize your end user journey or the learning journey your student is going to get. That visualization is lacking in many people, because we are working with a lot of writers and all that when you are developing content. Maybe it's because of our education system, maybe because the way we are thinking, that visualization is playing a huge role when you are defining that great content product or a software product what we want to have. The third point, it's kind of connected to my second point also. I'm just going a little fast because we are running out of time. So the third point, again, I'm very serious about this, the stereotype where people think, maybe you're not thinking like that, but especially the teachers are thinking, oh, look here now, I'm a young teacher. So, I mean, I have like this whole advantage over some old teacher who doesn't have knowledge on technology, who's not tech savvy. But if you want me to do a great e-learning product, you give me two choices. You give me a young teacher who knows about technology, and you give me a teacher who doesn't know anything about technology. That person can be, in her 50s, but a great teacher who's creative as a teacher. I'll select the creative old teacher all day long, right? Because I have seen, because this is the thing. Now, I can teach someone to use a learning management system in 2 days. I can teach someone to use Adobe Captivate or a learning content authoring tool maybe in 5 weeks. I can teach someone to develop interactive content using HTML5 in 1 month, but I can't teach someone to become a good teacher in few months, right? It's years of knowledge and the expertise and that skill need to be there. So it's great we are giving this focus in professors' presentation. I've seen that content development centers and all that. So when we are developing these content development centers and we are doing curriculums and all that, so more than focusing on the technical knowledge, I think we have to have proper ways of giving them the creativity, especially the instructional design, because in Sri Lankan universities, instructional design is not something teach seriously. So when we started our company, I mean, we are from Moratuwa, so we are pretty okay with the software development, but we had to learn ourselves what is instructional design, how to do that, a lot of theories and all that. So all these like interesting and successful products in the world. If you take Byju's, very successful in India as a content, it's not the technical knowledge of these developers, it's the creativity. Any product you have seen, we have done some award-winning products, but the creativity has taken a major part in all these projects. So the point again I'm going to take, it's always the creativity of the teacher, the skill as a teacher compared to the technical savviness of that particular person that we are talking about. Okay, so the fourth point I want to make is that, so we always talk about Singapore, we always talk about Finland, we always talk about all these different nations and the experience of those classrooms. I have been to some of the classrooms, I visited some classrooms in Singapore, and you kind of get scared. I mean, these classrooms are very active and teachers are very tech savvy. They use OneNote to all these tools and all that. But having said that, I have to tell you, when the policies are in place, when the guidance are in place, we have very creative teachers in Sri Lanka. I think we are all products of our free education system. We all have our teachers who have really changed our lives. So when it comes to ICT also, with the minimum opportunities they have, there are teachers, they have done wonders. So just to make things little interesting, I thought of sharing my screen and show you some of the examples, right? If it is okay with you. So what I'll do is I'll just sharing my screen right now. Okay, so hope you can see my screen, right? Hello, I hope you can see my screen and you can hear me clearly.
Can, please go
right,
ahead.
Okay. So this is a school that we have been helping through a program that Professor also mentioned called NANASA, dialogue initiated program called NANASA. We have a program called NANASA Smart School. So this school is in, this is Moratuwa National College. So you can see they have their own blog, and this is how they have put post on all this stuff they have done in the COVID time. And in addition to that, I mean, that we all know, a lot of schools have done a lot of stuff. Few other things I would focus now, they have done their own website to share the content with the teachers and the students. And they have even done other initiatives like they have their own online inventory management system. Again, came up like a initiative of a teacher. And I have seen some interesting things. Now, for example, this particular teacher is on teaching tourism. So for grade 13, and he's using VR headsets to teach his students. So there are, if this is a public blog, if I can, I'll just share this, like the links to the blog as well. So there are so many things they are doing, especially non-ICT teachers are doing great stuff. We have helped these schools. I mean, we have given some training, we have given some guidance, but most of these things have done their own. Now, I'll show you another school. This is a school in Kegol. It's Suleimania College. So this school, you can see they have published their, this is a COVID time, they have a online classroom timetable is there. And you can see, now see the teaching aids they are using. Now, this particular one is very interesting. Most of you who are like familiar with, who are interested in maths and teaching maths and all that, must be familiar with this tool called GeoGebra. It's an international tool, free tool. It's a really powerful tool for maths. Now, these teachers are using GeoGebra when teaching maths online. And the other thing is, then a lot of people will raise this question, look here, how we are going to train teachers. Now we have given a little bit of training, but going beyond that, these teachers, these schools who knows this technology have their own programs to educate other trainers, other teachers. Now, if you take, these are all WhatsApp posters, they are posting to other teachers to invite to the teacher training sessions they are doing within the school. So there are, there are topics even going to VR and AR in education done by school teachers to other teachers. I mean, this is very important for sustainable kind of a project inside these schools. And if you take these other things, see, this is again very interesting to me. Now, I talk about visualization, designing, lesson planning. Personally, I'm a big fan of mind mapping. So again, see the teachers inside this school in Kegol are giving sessions to other teachers on mind mapping, and they're introducing tools with free of charge or available in Google Play Store to do their own mind mapping. So they are doing lesson designs, and before doing the final design, you can say they are doing their own mind maps. I mean, I feel really proud to see these kind of teachers, not in Colombo, not in very popular schools, even the schools who are not very popular in Sri Lanka. So that's a little bit of stuff I want to share about some of the teachers. And I'll show you one other example. Now, we talk about things like VR in a big way. Now, this is a VR content developed by a teacher. This teacher has done a VR content. I'm showing you caps of that on the video. So this is about science, and the students can do questions in the VR, the environment. So this is something teacher has done themselves, and finally in the VR itself, you can see your final marks and all that. So these are some of the examples I wanted to show you to give you a glimpse of what possibilities we have with the current teachers. So when we have a great framework and a holistic plan like Professor Kapila presented, when you are implementing, I think the sky is the limit that we can go with these teachers. And those are my 4 points. And the final point, I want to touch a little bit on the students and especially ICT as a subject. Now, all these things I have shown you are ICT, using ICT teaching other subjects. So ICT for students, one hand, I feel teaching ICT to students as a subject is important. And again, it's a less challenging thing because the students have a knack of getting the new technology. On the other hand, I believe the most effective way of teaching ICT into the students and giving them projects and challenges. I'll give you an example on that. So we did this program, and students and the teachers, we are actually only working with the teachers. Teachers are the people who are connecting the students into the program. So one school, this is, I think, Maharagama Janadipati. So Maharagama Janadipati Vidyalaya wanted to do a project in ICT using IoT and various innovations. So we did a few workshops on Arduino. There's a tool called Arduino. Initially Microbit, then they went with Arduino. Then we did a bit of a because with our development team, we gave a basic understanding, product designing and doing prototypes and all that. Then a little bit of understanding and presentation skills. And these are the stuff they came up with. I'll show you. I hope you can share the voice as well.
මම නිර්මාණය කරේ ස්මාර්ට් හෝම් එක අපිට මම නිර්මාණය කරේ ස්මාර්ට් හෝම් එක අපිට ලෝකේ ඕනම තැනක සිට මොබයිල් ෆෝන් එකෙන් ලයිට් ඔන් ඔෆ් කරගන්න පුළුවන්.
මේක හැදුවේ මිනිසුන් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ෆුට්බෝඩ් එක යනකොට ගොඩක් අනතුරු වෙනවා. ඒකට හා මේ බස් එකෙන් ජනේලෙන් එළියට අත දානකොට සමහරවිට ඒත් අනතුරු වෙනවා. ඒ අනතුරු වළක්වා ගැනීම සඳහා මම මේක හැදුවේ. මම හදලා තියෙනවා ගෑස් ලීක් ඩිටෙක්ටර් එක. ඒ දැන් වර්තමානයේ ගොඩක් ගෙවල් වල පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ මේ ගෑස් කියන්නේ මේ LP ගෑස් එකෙන්. එතකොට අනතුරු මම හදලා තියෙනවා ඩිස්ටන්ස් මීටර් එකක්. ඒකෙන් දුර වර්ගඵලය සහ ආනතිය මනින්න පුළුවන්. අපි ගෙදරක ටයිල් අල්ලනවා නම් වගේ ගෙදර
I think you got the idea, right? So hope you heard the voice of the students as well. The audio was clear. Right. So actually the distance meter guy who did the distance meter, this is a kind of a tool now you have in some of the smartphones as well. So he presented this, and I don't have the videos of the presentation. So we gave them a brief introduction to PowerPoint, and especially how you should use PowerPoint without a lot of text and few slides and all that. So some of the PowerPoint presentations they have done are much better than some of the corporate presentations we have done in our sales pitches. So it was amazing. So finally, again, to wrap up my presentation, as I said, I think when you are implementing ICT into education, we should give the education, the term education requires more focus, I would say. So I think the creativity, the open-mindedness and the visualization, those kind of things are key when you're designing your solution, even purchasing your solutions and implementing your solutions. And when it comes to teachers, yes, we have great teachers, just a matter of giving them the kickstart and guidance, they'll do wonders for us. And when it comes to students, I think we should give them challenges. I think we should give them, we should not give them knowledge and ask them to tell the knowledge we gave them. We should give them problems and we should ask them to solve problems. So they'll do gas leak detectors to distance meters to whatever they want us to do. I think that should be the way. And again, finally, very happy with the reforms that we are doing. I think we are on the right track. and people like us who are into ICT in education have a lot of opportunities to do some significantly value creating things with the new reforms. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hasitha. That was a wonderful presentation, and you focused on so many things, and also I think all of us are so excited to see the initiatives that have come out of schools that are considered not the most popular urban. But what I would like Sujata, during her presentation, is to tell us how come we are not able to roll this out nationally or provincially. I mean, how come we are still picking on few schools in every province, in every divisional secretariat division maybe? Ideally, at this stage, we should have been able to roll this out, since so much of talent, so much of creativity we have in our teachers and in our students, whether they are in peripheral schools or in urban schools. So over to you, Sujata, and after that we can open up the discussion. Sujata, you have to unmute.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. Okay, thank you everybody, and thank you, Tara. Yes, I took away, 3 main points. And the first one is, and I'm really happy that Professor Kapila Perera, I mean, he was, he really, picked on the idea of the demand side issue. And I think he was very humble enough to say that we haven't thought of that. So I think that is a big leap for us, because so we've been hearing about the supply side, and from the center. So during COVID only, we started looking to see at the ground level, and the survey data I learned it was just on infrastructure, but how are the students actually, the education part of it, as Hasitha was saying. I think, so we have a great chance at this point. And I think we need to take upon this, Tara, and everybody else. I'm saying, let's develop some indicators and let's do some demand side, some analysis and present to the ministry. Because, when this is what we call a policy window. When a major policymaker comes and says, oh, this is important, then we should all jump in on that. So I'm very happy about that. And the second one is infrastructure. Maybe they can expand on that. I mean, what is the state of infrastructure in the schools? Do we have data? So how many schools? I think ICT had the data. Maybe Indika can just tell us at least what % of the schools by type of school, type A, B, and so on. What is the infrastructure we have in the school? Again, we need data. And it's what the professor, again, Kapila Perera was talking about, the data collection system. I think that is a major achievement for us. Now each child has a unique student ID, and data are collected. But unfortunately, the teachers right now collect the data and send, but when the schools close, they did not have the data. The data was in the schools in files. So I think it's something, because it goes to the center and it's not accessible to teachers. So that's another thing. We need to collect information and communicate to the ministry, because it's always a very centralized thinking. We've been doing that for years, and you can't blame them. But you collect the data, but you don't think about giving teachers access to the data. So but I think the content side is really, what Hasitha was saying. I think it's, again, we need to, what I find, Ms. Tara was asking why all these things are happening. Why is it not getting, generalized? Why we can't have this in all schools? But I think a major problem, again, is we are thinking from the center about one size fits all. I think we need to have a way of some of this information going up to the center and allowing schools to, giving them room to innovate. So I'd like to actually ask Hasitha how that would be possible. For example, during COVID, we find that all of a sudden the teachers and the zonal officers were left on their own. And I managed to get into one of the zonal officers. He invited me to some of the WhatsApp groups that they were having in their zone. I'm in 2 WhatsApp groups, And the teachers, amazing what they were trying to do. You know, they started giving, they shared a lot of links to videos. They used some master teachers. And so when they were left alone, actually, then people were experimenting and doing various things. So I think that's another thing I think we should bring to the attention of the policymakers. And actually, and I can't sort of endorse what Hasitha, the 5 points that Hasitha brought out, particularly the education part in ICT. Because unless we change the exam system, unless we change the, unless we reduce the time we spend for exams in the school and leave room time for students to do all these projects, we will never integrate ICT into education. So that's what I take away from this is particularly this, really the need to keep on asking for demand side data. I think it's very easy to, be comfortable saying, look at surplus. We've done so much, we've given so much. So I hope we all can get together. I hope some of you will support the EFSL to develop some demand side indicators and collect some demand side data. And the other one is, again, the importance of bottom up initiatives. And I hope, I wish Professor Kapila was there to listen to Hasitha's presentation, because I think we need to again get that across to the ministry, and we can see that they're very open. So this is a very great opening for us. So I hope this community, people who are here today, will support us. I think, Tara, we have a wonderful opportunity, what we call a policy window at this point, and we should go at it. And I like to hear more ideas in the discussion.
Thanks a lot, Sujata. Just before the others start asking questions, I just want to ask you, we saw the Learn Asia data, which we've been looking at so carefully. We have something like a meager 37% access to internet, 48% to smartphones, and 26% to PCs, laptops. So in your view, throw the question out to the others here, most of them are experts in this, and I'm not. What kind of initiative can the Sri Lankan government take? Using the Nepal, the Keralas, the Malaysian, whatever examples in the Asian, not highly developed nation status, what can the Sri Lankan government do to make this access to internet more peripheral, make it more accessible to those in the periphery? Because the urbanized schools will somehow find it in some way or the other. We could think of creative teachers, we can think of content, we can think of everything else. But if that basic infrastructure is not there, however much of creativity we have in the classroom and school is not going to be of any use. So can you give your views on that before we open it out to the others? And from there on, we can take questions. We have 1 hour for the discussion. Thank you.
Yes. The ICT infrastructure, you have to look at it 2 ways, in school and at home. So, we have to look at it right now, I think, maybe Indika can expand on that. I think if you take the schools, we should target the schools and make sure the schools have internet access. But that also is limited by what the ICT industry can do, because how they roll out 3G, 4G. And a lot of people you would notice that 48% had smartphones, but only 34% used the internet. That is, one part is they didn't find a use for that. Another part is access. And in our surveys, we found that actually that was a complaint of a lot of parents. So some of these things are out of the hands of the Ministry of Education. 3G, 4G rollout. That is a bigger thing, how much incentive these companies get. Actually, our companies are really, some of our prices are more competitive than in the region, and they have been highly taxed. So some of the taxes have to be removed and so on. So that's a bigger, different picture. But I think the Ministry of Education, I think we should have that's some data we should ask the ministry, at least a goal for, some data on how many have internet access, not again from the supply side by the demand side. You know, how many hours did you have internet access? Was this all 22 days or just some of the days? And how many students had access to the internet in a given month? How many times? So that kind of indicator we need to find, and maybe the ministry can actually talk about focusing on the schools. Again, specific, some school satellites, I don't know. Indika, please come on here and help me out. And school-wise, whether we can go school-wise access infrastructure. But the homes, the second one is, I don't think we are going to get the internet access to the home. We are going to get full equity in any time soon. So because the homes are spread out, school is one place for say about 400 students or 1,000 students. So you can take care of the school. And also in terms of school, I think one important thing is, you know, children, we spend time, say we spend investments in the school, but children spend only 6 hours. And that time, you know, there's so many other things to do. So I think it's very important to keep schools open from 7 to 6. I think that's something we seriously need to talk, because we can invest money on the schools, hone in on the schools. And so it's you don't have to go to 400 homes. You have the school, you can focus on the school, but then let children spend as much time in the school. There's a lot of these poor children, they don't have after school classes or swimming lessons and other things to go to. They go home to there's nothing at home, nothing stimulating in academically. So I think, make sure schools have the infrastructure, and make sure children get to stay in the schools. You don't need to have all the teachers in the school all the time. You can have just one teacher supervising, and you can have somebody from the community, actually, animators or babysitters kind of people. And then I think that's one way to get the infrastructure. To the homes, I think it's not going to happen if we are homebound. Say suddenly the schools are closed again and children are homebound, then we have to actually think of using all different media. And textbooks, how do we just use the textbooks? Every home has a textbook. Every child has a textbook for every subject. So I think that's where the education part comes in. I mean, if I were to give some suggestions, I would say at least once a month, we should have these mock scenarios where children pretend they're in school, but they pretend they're homebound. How do they learn? I mean, the teacher is not there. They're in the classroom, in groups, whatever. I think we have to practice so that we can seamlessly move into when schools close. We can just, children can have their education. Maybe all the children would get this SMS message from the teacher. Or maybe the teacher will leave the classroom leaving a message. And the children have to look up their textbooks and talk to each other. Maybe they can talk to each other. Imagine they're talking to each other in the phone. But somehow we have to do these mock trials and somehow get schools to think about how to reach out these schools in the case of an emergency. So I think those mock practices we need to think about. And there we have to think about, start from the people who have only access to a feature phone. Feature phone access, almost 100% of homes now have. So I think we have to look at the situation differently. ICT infrastructure for schools. And for homes, I think it will be a long time before our homes are equipped to, for children to work on the internet and get that kind of ICT use in their education. And there we have to think of, we really have to think of using the tools we have. Textbooks, feature phones, TV, radio. And I think we should have in schools, we should have practice sessions to see how they would do that when they have to, if there's another situation like the COVID-19.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sujata. Stefan has raised his hand. Just one quick point to Indika, if you can please help us out to figure it out. Now, you mentioned all the details of the government's policy vis-a-vis rolling out internet access and so on. So addressing Sujata's concerns, is there a plan at some point between 2020 and 2024 or 2025 in the next 5 years to reduce the gap, to bridge the gaps that we are seeing in terms of availability of internet, not just in schools, the way we saw what happened in COVID? In other words, can we ever reach a situation as close as possible, maybe to a country like Singapore or Australia or New Zealand or one of those countries? And after that, Sifan.
Can I ask that question very specifically from Indika, Tara?
Yes.
Yeah, specifically Indika, there are 10,000 plus schools.
Correct.
I mean, how many of those do you think we can realistically give internet access? How many have got so far, at least the equipment, and how many do you think can we go to at least 80% of the schools having internet access and in their lab?
So if you look at the 10,000, about 10,200 plus schools we have, close upon to 4,000 schools are what you call the primary schools. That's like grade 1 to grade 5. And most of those schools are like, less than 300 to 400 kids. The rest of the 6,000 schools are from grade 1 to grade 13. Some are from grade 5 to grade 13. Some are from grade 1 to grade 10. So what do you call the category of AB class, AB category, which is type C and type 2. So this is where the kids. So primarily we need to minimum reach the 6,000 schools. So in that, which is we need to get to the first level, which is the AB group, and the type C, that's about 2,700 schools. So that will be the first level of internet going. And when looking at geographically how it is being situated, the 6,000 schools are in generally in the in a city area, which is not in the urban area, but say where the fiber ring is covering, which is the Sri Lanka telecom infrastructure has the fiber ring, which is this fiber ring is covering. Now, so getting schools or internet that's a matter requirement. So sometime back, maybe 2014 prior, there was something called a school net. There were 2,400 schools were connected. At that time, it was a very limited bandwidth technology what is available, but for different reasons that got kind of disconnected. And then there were provisions were given schools to, or the provisions were given like the principal can procure internet connection with the allocation the principal can get. There are different bandwidths were given 1,000 rupees, 1,500 rupees, 2,000 rupees, depending on that. Principal can take the connection and they can pay it. So now even Professor Kapila was also talking about providing connectivity to all the schools. So I think what government is looking at least take the connectivity into these 6,000 schools in a periodic manner, because it costs a lot. And we need to keep one point in mind. We can use 3G, 4G, these connectivities. But if you keep these or given devices to students and you keep it open blindly, we can get into a lot of trouble. It's very important that we have a very good monitoring system. It's what you call a VPN network, which is we should be able to know what kids are accessing. Should be able to control what you call even we give you a device to our kid, we put parenting control. But we can't expect all the parents to monitor the devices using parenting control. But we need to have a centrally monitor it, and or they need to make these devices to for the learning purpose versus doing other things, right? These questions were discussed in many forums. So we need to look at all those aspects, but the policy-wise decision is made. Right now, my estimation or what the understanding what I have, maybe Hasitha can also will have some access to it. Roughly about 3,000 schools has some form of internet. It can be 3G, some are with lease line, some are with ADSL connections. Different technologies has been used on that. Now, the point Dr. Zoysa, you made, schools has to be open. So that actually that has been done some time back. Even the policy decision, all that the regulation was made that the ICT labs, which is in the schools, are you can keep it open 24 hours. You can do many things using that. Even the villages are used to, can come into these schools and idle time they can do learning. So that provision is been already made in the system, which is you can optimize it. To my understanding, there's about 150,000 devices which is available in the school system right now. And the last large project was 1,000 schools project, what they call it. There's about 60,000 devices maintained, 60 PCs per school. And some bigger schools has the past people's associations and the these communities have got together and done developing labs and so this has happened. But as a national initiative, that was a larger one. And Professor Kapila was mentioning there's going to be about 90,000 tablets are going to come into the system right now, which is very sooner. So that will add a lot of value to it. And also the other point is, now say decently we have a coverage in our nation using 3G, 4G. Now TRC is right now running a program, what they call it, the government is unevent. They want to make sure that 100% of the coverage is there, 4G, and the next technologies, which is 5G, is expected to come. So these technologies. So they are doing the first pilot run in Ratnapura district. They want to make sure every corner of that district is covered. So I don't think we'll run into a major issue, or like I don't think connectivity is a major issue. But again, now when you have a device, you're concerned about your bill. Now, during the COVID time, we had a great experience that all these educational links were whitelisted. So I believe Guru.lk also whitelisted, if I'm not mistaken. Hasitha, you can add on that. And eTaxalav, so you use your eTaxalav or like, Guru.lk, the content, your bill won't go. Otherwise, what will happen is you use father's or like, parents' smartphone, and your data bill will go and it'll get disconnected after a while. So the usage will go down. But good thing was TRC was very instrumental on that, together with the supplier side of that, and they got these all links whitelisted, and still I think it's valid. And we can see on commercially also a lot of telcos advertising like, at 99 rupees, 299 rupees, you can buy different packages on different education platforms, are unlimited kind of model. So industry also has coming together. Other point is what TRC is right now doing is, I think Dr. Thara, I think mentioned, or somebody mentioned, there's a lot of taxes, which is we have to pay, right? So that tax money is, they're bringing it back. So now I've seen a lot of statement from the TRC DG Oshida, who's talking about it, they're going to put that tax money back, reinvest, where the connectivity can be improved. So that's very good news for us. And we can see that work is already started. So specifically, they are looking at covering these major segments like education, even they are looking at covering healthcare sector. So all these sectors, they are looking at putting that tax money back into the investment, and how the coverage can be taken across. So specifically in the schools, as I said, about 3,000 schools are covered, and about 150,000 devices which is available in the right now. And there's decent amount of like an eTaxalav is the move of the portal which is we have been using, and that's official one. I think then we have a Guru.lk type of the activities which is coming in handy. And the examples has the main, right? Actually, more than the Colombo schools or the major cities, we can see schools which is like, even a vehicle can't travel. Maybe you have to walk like 2 hours. There are kids are doing so much of such initiatives. I have experienced by myself, like, there was one school in Ratnapura, I had to walk 1 hour. And when you go to this place, you can see these kids are talking like, kind of, their accent is little closer to American accent. What they do is they're connecting with US schools, and in the night, like, they do classes together with them, and they're learning from them. They're sharing experiences with others. Like, there we have like, hundreds of such cases we'll be able to pull in within the system. So these kids have the need, and you have, the good thing is you have all those courses. There's one champion teacher who drives this initiative. They will do out of the world things. As Hasitha was talking about the VR and stuff like that, we have such people like, one that's teaching the school actually runs a radio station which is communicating kids the education platform in the village itself. Like, like in my emergency situation, you can use that radio station, but they're running in that village to do all that communication, which doesn't need WhatsApp or like, what those technologies available. So such things which is we have in pocket, I think we have identified most of it, okay, and we can figure it out what fits for us. It doesn't mean that what works in USA or UK or Germany or Australia is the fit for us. So we need to get our fit with the Sri Lankan way of doing it, and we need to customize and tailor made it and put it into our system to fit into our education system until we can bring the harvest.
Thanks very much. Yes. I'm going to Sifan, who's been raising his hand for a long time now. Sorry about that, Sifan.
No worries. Right. So I wanted to raise a couple of observations. One was, it seems that when we're talking about education, we are very much focused on the aspect of how it is preparing people for the workforce. They're assisting about 30% about a skills gap and things like that. And so obviously, what economic contribution happens and whether people can earn a livelihood and things are important parts of education. But to only consider that aspect seems very dangerous for me. Like, I mean, is the only purpose of education to create workers for the labor market? Like, do we not have any other life that education needs to prepare us for? And so even like art, I mean, they talk of STEM to STEAM, and I think this STEM STEAM is a great disservice to humanity, because art is there reduced to something as either a tool to learn science or a design tool to create products. There is the art for the sake of art, for the aesthetic experience of being human is not there in STEAM story, and this has impacts on our mental health as well, right? Which is also an ongoing issue. And what if somebody goes through school and becomes a housewife, or much less frequently a house husband? So then they are doing childcare. This is not reflected in the GDP. It's not considered valuable. But isn't childcare something valuable for society? We see every day newspapers, you see stories about child abuse and domestic violence and things like that. And shouldn't education be nurturing different sort of behaviors that create a more peaceful society, right? And even another example, I don't know if all girls schools have it, but I think they do offer this subject called home economics. And I've not heard, I may be wrong, but I've not heard of a boys school that offers home economics, right? So is it that boys grow up into men who are tenants in homes run by women, or we don't live in homes, right? So what even the gender disparity in society is created by the system, because we don't prepare men for any of those sort of roles, right? So that's one point I wanted to make in terms of how we define the purpose of education and what success factors we judge it by. And for the other point, could I ask Indika, he had a slide of how ICT is changing education. Is it possible, Indika, to put that up again?
Yeah, sure. Which one?
I think there were like 5 things, like
Anywhere, anytime, self-learning.
Yes, yes.
Oh, yes. I think that's
This one?
Yes. So I wanted to make an observation on this, that so this is, let's say, evaluating the traditional education based on what the traditional education parameters was, which is based on instructivism. There's direct instruction from the adult. And these are maybe some areas where that paradigm changes. But I think if we look at education more broadly from a constructivist or connectivist perspective, there's a couple of dimensions that are not touched in this. And one is the aspect of, so in instructivism, it's content delivery, right? Even Dr. Kapila mentioned about our delivery methods. And the idea is that, children are these empty things and we just have to pour the knowledge into them. And that's why we call it delivery methods. But ICT especially enables us to do so much content creation. So we don't have to just read Wikipedia articles, we could edit them, or we could translate English into Sinhalese or Tamil. We don't have to just watch videos. We can go out and shoot a video, make a documentary, publish this. We can not just read notes or dialogues, but we can, there are so many forum softwares that can host conversations, and then not just between children in a school, but in other classrooms, other schools, even other countries. There could be conversations arising that is supporting the constructivist perspective. And the other aspect that's missing in this diagram is how the children interact with each other. Because in a traditional classroom, there may not be time for that interaction because the teacher is teaching all the time. Or even if there is a group discussion time, its agenda is set by the teacher. You have to discuss this and come up with an answer for this. And that compliance on that is monitored. You don't have in the classroom much space for free discussion. You maybe have it in the interval or before school or after school. And that's an aspect that was quite a challenge when this pandemic schooling started, because kids at some point figured they could send messages on Zoom and things like that, but then the system kind of came down hard on them because you're supposed to be paying attention to the teacher and not chatting with your friends. But with ICT, quite possible to separate it that somebody presents listening to the teacher or the expert presents something, but then for the rest of the day we could organize into groups and we could have conversations. So that kind of children to children interaction is much more supported by ICT. So those two dimensions didn't come here because I think there's a tendency, even when you talk about ICT, to still look at it from that instructivist paradigm of education rather than constructivist and connectivism. So yeah, those are the points I wanted to raise.
Yep. One point actually I can add, like, say, I mean, probably we didn't discuss all the points possibly which is going to come in, right? So when you're looking at the new formation of the Minister of Education, it starts like an earlier Minister of Education is all about teaching alone or delivery of education. It says different now. Now even this includes the preschools, includes prevents, the entire ecosystem of education is involved in it. Now even we have, I mean, in the new system which is coming in, it's not all about integration of IT, or it's about how you make that complete person, or like, what we need that individual need to be look like, or what is the skill set the person should have. So even things like mindfulness has been going to be integrated. So those aspects has been thought about. So even if you probably, Professor Kapila would have been here, it's ideal because he's somebody who has been practicing this mindfulness at the University of Moratuwa for a longest time, as when he was a vice chancellor there, right? So these, because he's somebody with hands-on. Now you can look at these aspects are bringing into the education system. Probably we didn't have time to get into those details, as that we were more focused on the digital angle or the technology angle on this discussion, right? So now these aspects are being looked at. The expertise has been looking at all those areas, and that we will have what we can in a simple way, like, that well-rounded person can be created. It's not like, somebody with so many degrees coming out or some with the skill set coming out. It's about a well-rounded person coming into the society, and what the contribution that person can make to the society. Like, it's not about somebody's trained or you put in at the grade 1, the person come out of grade 13 or after the degree, like, he's ready for a job. It's not a machinery. It's about making that complete person. So completely agree with you on that point. That has been looked at, and the aspects of those has to be considered in these forums. Probably we will be able to get to know more news when the things are getting more firmed up.
It would be good
Thanks
if
very
those
much.
are,
Sorry.
just to quickly say, it would be very good if those were visible in the success measures, and when we talk about how whether education is successful or not, or what is missing in education, if that got that same level of visibility as the employment.
Correct. So one point, like, say there'll be, I can't talk behalf of the government or the ministry, but as far as what information and I know, and since I've been part of certain things, is that there will be going to be a complete M&E, or like, measurement criteria has been monitored on a periodical manner. We'll be able to get these information coming out, which is some of the, probably one of the gaps is like, we never had a, what do you call, a complete or end-to-end M&E mechanism, how that measure that output or the impact coming out. So these will be able to extract and also on the go will be able to improve or change versus these M&E mechanisms which comes into the practice and how it can be done.
Thanks. Ranintri has been with her hand raised. Can we hear from her, please?
Hi. I just wanted to can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Unfortunately, somehow Zoom won't let me put the video on. I have to go to settings. I'm going to do that. Just going to stay off for now. I just wanted to raise 2 points. Firstly, full confession, I didn't hear the entirety of Indika's presentation, so this might have already been discussed. One is I wanted to emphasize the definition of a makerspace. I'm an architect, and I kind of have accidentally gone into kind of maker education. And we work with, a makerspace does not have to include technology. It does not have to include 3D printers and laser cutters, but it can involve the idea of making with cardboard, making with sand, making with, so all you'd need for a makerspace, at least for a starting point, would be a room full of junk and some glue. That I feel like is an infrastructure that can be maintained and managed very easily. And I wanted to emphasize that because that means it's a possibility. Because even I sometimes don't know how to use a 3D printer. It involves downloading a lot of software and making models. Someday we'll get there, but here's a starting place. And the second point I wanted to make, I think this might be a very naive idea. It might have already been discussed. I'll watch it on the recorded Zoom later. Have you discussed, say, internet as an infrastructure, a public infrastructure? I think Sujata mentioned that, of course, it may not be in every home, internet and 3G, but what if there were, internet zones, like you walk 1 mile to your internet hub, like a library. I mean, the internet is like a road, like telephones. It should be a public infrastructure. And also that promotes group learning and, people getting together to learn. And of course, there are issues. I think in New York, there's a thing called Link NYC, and that had some initial issues where it's a public infrastructure in internet net connection software, where I think the way Google did it was they use it as a platform for ads in exchange for free internet. Initially they did have issues with providing unlimited access to internet because of the content, so that of course needs to be controlled. But I just wanted to bring up a discussion amongst everyone about what about nodal internet hubs, that can be within a 1 mile range, possibly in schools. That's about it for now.
Thanks very much. I mean, that's precisely one of the things that I had asked at the very onset. Is there anybody who wants to respond to run into this second point before we go on to Janaka, whose hand is raised?
Probably I'll add one point on that, like, the point about the makerspaces. Yeah, probably I made the comment about the 3D printers and the Arduinos and the thing. But again, here we have a lot of practical examples, starting from the ice cream sticks to glue to things like, what you throw off the bottle or throw off things, which is kids are making unique things. Actually, we have quite a bit of private sector environment right now running these kind of, as a business, which is running as the maker spaces in Colombo and most of the cities, which is using these basic things, which we call like, what you throw or the junk. So, it can go, what I meant was on a more of a commercial level, like, when you go to the highest level, that is where things has been possibly at the most, some of the universities right now getting into that level.
Definitely.
Of like, yeah. And actually, I'm also involved with my current employer, which is we are creating 2 such labs in University of Moratuwa and KDU.
Really
so
great.
yeah, so, and also other thing is possibly you can invite the TRC DG to this panel in a later day. He'll be able to actually possibly, like, there's a lot of news on the media as well. They are talking about, as I said before, that putting back the tax money into the system or the telecommunication levy, and they are reinvesting that money to provide technology, like, taking the 3G and the 4G coverage to every corner of the country. As I said, the example I took of Ratnapura. So they started all that. They want to make Ratnapura as a first city, which is 100% coverage. So they are looking at every district to be done like that within a very shorter time period. So hopefully every corner of the country will have the 3G, 4G coverage, and time to come possibly the 5G or the newer technologies basically which is coming in. So that's an ambitious plan, which is they already started working on it, and that's on the card.
Thank you so much. Who is the chairman, TRC?
Not the DG. Chairman is by, I think, default is the president secretary comes in, and
DG?
Oshida Senanaki is the DG. Yeah, DG.
Right. Thank you so much. Mr. Janaka?
Hello, can you hear me?
Can.
Yeah, okay. Actually, I'm not an educationist. I am a professional engineer. And however, I write on education because I have interest. So this question is to Indika. So he talked about the skills deficiency of the people coming out of the education system and who are working. So to me, it's about the quality. So I want to know about from Indika, what kind of a quality assurance systems are in place in this system, whether it's a higher education system or in other vocational education. Because actually one of my articles also will be next week in Daily FT on quality, because I had done a bit of a research on that. And I want to know about the quality assurance systems are in place to make sure the people who are coming out of the education system are ready to take up or use their skills the economy or the industry wants. Because the issue is the quality should be defined by both the academic standards and also the stakeholders, the view or the requirements. So I don't see it is happening. So what's your comments on that, Indika?
So agree. So there's no, to my knowledge, there's no formal quality assurance methodology which is we follow. Like, only thing is the exam or the results what you get. You will say this is the degree I did. You have upper class or the whatever the grade you have got. That's only.
Actually, we do have a quality assurance system, yeah, in the university, yeah.
No, we have, but okay. So put it in a format. Yes, we have. But again, its measurement is like, as you mentioned, that what employer need and what exactly the production comes in. So we find most of the time, maybe Hasitha also can add here because he also must be hiring a lot of people from the sector. When you get somebody with the such required degree, you have to do a lot of on-the-job training because they are not ready to come in. But we take one example. Now, say we take a university like Moratuwa, which is they take this as very seriously. They use a lot of out-of-the-box methodologies to make sure that the mapping is done rightly, whether their graduates output which is coming in is ready for the market straight away. So even myself has been part of a mentor for them. What they do is they send you the kids in the third year for about 3 months, work or talk with the industry professionals and understand how the industry works, what the day look like of the person in the industry, what the skill set they need to develop. Like that, they do a lot of this blending coming in, and that's why the University of Moratuwa, especially on the IT side, like those graduates are highly demanded. Now, when you're looking at the larger production which is coming in, this gap is not being mapped. So I take one more example, going a little lower on the vocational sector. Right now, there's about 20,000 are doing IT-related vocational training, but hardly anybody can be actually taken into the industry because the skill set or the training what they have gone through is not what the industry is looking at. So some of the courses are like fairly old. So the academic staff is not being trained. Now we can't blame them, but that's what actually we are trying to fix right now.
Yeah.
Can
we get back a little more to the sort of connecting the ICT, and can I just intervene a little bit? Yeah, yes. Because I think holistic education is important, but I think what we are trying to do is because ICTs have a connection to that. So, I mean, there are other ways of going holistic education. So let's talk about the ICT aspect of it. And particularly now that we know, it's become, integration is important because we had a situation where we had, more than 50% of the children off the grid during COVID time. We can have that situation again. So my questions here, I'd like to take us back to what Hasitha was saying. See, now infrastructure, it seems to me that infrastructure and content will be there if we have the need, if ICT, integration of ICT into education is somehow there's incentives. So what I like to get some ideas is how do we get teachers to integrate ICT into education? I'll give one example. Tara asked about digital literacy, even for university students. I mean, if we had some, when they had this TABS initiative, what we propose is, what exactly Hasitha was saying, what's the objective of giving the tabs? What's the objective of giving connectivity? So we developed something called a digital literacy indicator. We said, okay, you give the free tabs, at least have a indicator, have a test, have a way of measuring whether there's digital literacy. So I think if we can take the conversation to that area, for digital literacy, what we suggested is, what is digital literacy? That the students are able to access information, sort through the information, synthesize it, identify what is relevant, synthesize, and then present. So I think if we can have that kind of some sort of a requirement for the schools, I think we will have the integration part. So I think that, to me, it seems the conversation should be not about the infrastructure, not about the content, or generally about holistic education, but how do we marry this ICTs with the holistic education? How do we integrate? So any indicators, how do we measure? Because I think we have an opening to present to the ministry, okay, you're providing all this, you're saying all these things about holistic education, but how is it being received? Are the children experiencing it? Any ideas for how we can measure that? What are the indicators?
Can I add something here? Yeah. So I would like to add to this, starting from Mr. Janaka's question he asked about the requirement, and the previous gentleman also pitched about what kind of an end goal we have of getting that output from the education system, right? So we all know that we need this quality output, which has the knowledge to be employed, knowledge to be the emotional intelligence and all kind of stuff, right? So, but what I want to tell you is now, until we have a proper mechanism where we understand that is where we are going, and then we do our policies and the design of the education to get there, I don't think these things can be achievable. And as a note, I would like you to watch this video, which is there on YouTube. It's a 1 hour discussion. I think all of you are interested in this subject, so please take that 1 hour. This is a discussion between few gentlemen, including there's a Dr. Upaliyam Sedara. You search Dr. Upaliyam Sedara, that discussion is going to be there. And there, him and the DG of NIE, they are in detail discussing about the new reforms and that quality measurement pattern and the measurement of the end user of the student. They are talking about not only the exam marks, that is, I think, the 30% weightage, and there are other weightages and all that. I think that's something he's going on. Again, now talking about integration into ICT, into education, right? Now ICT is just a tool, right? So what ICT can do is do the same thing in a better, faster, more effective way. So the backbone should be the education. So again, the makerspace example she gave, I think she's right on that. So it's not the technology. So what we are lacking is not the knowledge to use a 3D printer. Again, you can learn that in 1 month. The problem is you don't have the design thinking, you don't have the creativity, you don't know how to visualize, because that is not something you are teaching. So Indika was talking about us getting new employees into our companies, right, in the tech sector. The biggest problem we have is we can teach them PHP, but it's very difficult to ask them to design something, because they haven't done it for years. They haven't done it for 20 years. Now we ask them to do that. Right, so I have been through that mentoring program he mentioned when we were in university. So those kind of things are there here and there, but as a student from grade 1 to 13, we haven't not going there. But when we go and compete as an individual, as a country, with a system in maybe Finland or Singapore, wherever, those kids have done this over and over again while we are doing all the memorizing and all. So again, just to summarize what I'm telling, ICT is important to do these things faster, more effectively, and a more accessible manner because of the teachers and all kind of stuff. But still, the real focus should be on education, where you want to go, and defining that quality product that you want to do, make that person the holistic person that we said, and have the evaluation system underway. I think the reforms, the discussions are really good. If you can implement those, then there's a place for ICT. And the other thing is, since our education system right now is, I would say, in a very, I mean, don't take me, it's kind of little primitive, I would say. It's there for like 10, 15, it's very obvious. You memorize something, you pass. So there's a very small space ICT can do here. So what ICT can do is, I can help you to memorize more. I can help you to do 1,000 MCQs and do, kind of better at doing exams. That's not what we should do there. So again, the higher goal, then we can define the place for ICT in that space.
Okay, thanks. Sanka, you have a question. We are.
Yes, hi. I'm Sanka, and I'm a computer engineer. I work in Singapore, so I've been there for a while, seen what they've been up to as well. So one thing that I observe very clearly is that in places like Singapore, the States, and compared to what we have in Sri Lanka, they use ICT as a tool for problem solving. They use ICT as a tool to look at their environment, try to improve it, try to improve their lives, try to create new pathways for learning, and so on. So now for us, what I've seen happening. So I have a daughter. She's 12 now, so she's studying. So what I've seen happening there is that without the proper instruction, what they do is they take ICT and they convert it again to a subject that we actually study as another thing. ICT means I'm studying the computer, I'm studying what goes inside, I'm studying about the microprocessors and so on. But the difference that I see very clearly is that difference in thinking about technology. So when you go to schools, sometimes the ICT equipment is very precious, very you don't. Kids don't get to really pull out the nuts and bolts of it to see what goes inside, but that itself it's becoming a barrier for our children to kind of explore ICT as a series of tools. So I think partly that change in mindset is required. Instead of taking ICT and then teaching it again as a traditional subject, instead of that, ICT should be the subject where it kind of merges all our other subjects together, where they kind of take Buddhism, they take let's say Sinhala, science, mathematics, and so on, and use ICT to kind of merge that understanding to do like projects and other type of stuff like what Hasitha shared. So I think that sort of change in mindset towards the approach towards ICT is something required from the very younger ages, and I think we should focus a lot on that.
Thank you, Sanka. Any other questions, or anybody else wants to make a comment? But please keep it focused to what we are discussing today. Any comments from our rapporteurs? Yes,
I think we pretty much covered quite a lot of it, Dr. Tara. It was a very vibrant discussion indeed. The audience certainly participated. Thank you.
Sujata?
Can I ask Hasitha? Hasitha, sort of the conversation, I think, went in a direction sort of, okay, more important to fix the curriculum, fix the assessments, and ICT. Is that reasonable sort of conclusion to come to in this session? Then then the ICT use will fall into place. And I would answer that actually that's not the case, because during COVID, I think we found that we really realized how much, particularly looking at the elite schools and how the children were learning, it was so natural for them, because school time is only 6 hours and they do a lot of learning at home using ICTs. So I think that's something we came to realize during COVID. There's so much learning happening, not just in school, but outside of school using ICTs. I think how do we get that experience to our children? I think the only way to do that is through schools. So that's why I think ICT integration into education is important. And both these, why the curriculum, without curriculum changes and without the assessments changing, there's no point in using, as Hasitha was saying, using ICTs to, cram better. So I think both has to go hand in hand, I think. So there are two ways. I'm asking the question, Hasitha, do you think, we should just focus on curriculum, or it's more important, and or, should we put emphasis on both? I mean,
just to add to what Sujata said before Hasitha answers, you talked about the elite schools which seamlessly went from face-to-face school education to straight away to online education. It was nothing for them. That was in the international and the private schools, and the national schools, which are considered kind of elitist in Sri Lanka, which is not the case. Even in the national schools, it's just a handful of schools. And even in those handful of schools, just a handful of classrooms that were able to make maximum use of the Google Classroom opportunity, the using Microsoft Teams, that the Ministry of Education was facilitating. Because Sujata and I were conversing with the DGNI at that time, and we just wanted to know how many national schools, how many classrooms in each of those national schools are able to have online classrooms while at home, because COVID shut schools for so long, as you know. So the statistics he gave, he couldn't give the complete set, but he said it was a very small number. So what happened in the case of the international schools, it was not an issue for them because all the children had connectivity in their homes, and who didn't have connectivity were able to quickly purchase a dongle or whatever and do what they had to do. So bearing that in mind, I mean, I'm just trying to demonstrate the inequitable access, even in so-called Colombo urbanized national schools, which I find, I mean, it's a very serious gap that we have to look at. Yes, Hasitha.
Yeah, just to answer Dr. Tara's question first and then move to Dr. Sujata. Now, answering that, there are certain Colombo schools, actually, they have got our solutions like museums and all that. So those schools have done the same thing that we were doing as a school with Microsoft Teams. I mean, they were so successful doing that. Simply because not the knowledge of the students are higher than a knowledge in other part of Sri Lanka, but they had teachers who had the knowledge. And more than anything, they had the infrastructure. They had the devices at home and all. But again, in other areas also, there are schools where, but it's not the initiative didn't come from the school, but the teachers were interested. And when the teacher sees there are more than 50% student who has a smartphone, something like that, they did that. But it didn't happen in a more school level policy kind of a level, but has like an individual teacher level. Answering, and frankly, I don't have the stats. If you ask me in a like a holistic way, how many schools, like that kind of a stat I don't have, but there are a lot of in isolation, people have seen that I have seen. Some schools have done in the school level and the teacher level. And answering to Dr. Sujata, whether we should wait till the reforms to integrate or whether integrating would take us somewhere. I think it's all about different levels of outcomes we can look at. So by integrating ICT even to this syllabus, obviously there are so many things we can do. I mean, there are students who are doing that. I gave you a lot of examples, that's there. But on the other hand, there's another thing. Now, all these teachers who are doing this crazy stuff with us, right now when we talk to them, they're telling to people who are talking to these people, now we just have to cover the syllabus, and now the exams are coming and principal is pushing us and the parents are pushing us, and you know, with all that they are not really focused on all this creative part they have done. So without having this as a policy, not ICT, putting ICT into the education as a policy, but having that space in the education as a policy, I think it shouldn't give us that level of outcomes that we would expect. Now we are spending taxpayers' money. You're talking about billions of rupees for the tablets and infrastructure and all that. So we don't want to be like Nepal or in the regional players. We want to be like Singapore. We want to be like Finland or whatever. I mean, those countries, right? So to go there, we want to go beyond just giving the knowledge to the level where we talk about all these, you know, creativity, all this stuff that we were talking about, all these things we were talking about. So to go there, I think the reforms need to be there. But having said that, the reforms will take time. So until such time, we can have a process which can take us through different type of steps.
Thank you. Januka, you could unmute yourself, please, or...
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you, Tara. So my question is to Hasitha and Indika. Given this very obvious equity problem in ICT infrastructure in Sri Lanka, are we underutilizing television as a medium of instruction? Because that infrastructure has been there for at least two decades in my view, and you can reach a really a large number of students than what you would do with ICT. According to Sujata's statistics, 60% of households with kids between 5 and 18 don't have internet connection, which means, it might mean that we are leaving out these kids from education for the last 2-3 months. Are we underutilizing television? That's my question.
To answer that, actually, we have a television channel. We started very recently, something called Guru TV, right? The problem is television. I think it's good. We are getting good feedback and all that. There are a few problems with that. Number one is this Guru TV is on dialogue TV where it's going on a predefined program. So if you want to learn grade 7 maths, you have to check the timetable. You have to sit in front of the television on that particular time. But I believe when it comes to, again, it serves a particular purpose. I mean, to a certain level, it can help. But when it comes to education into a different level, you need on-demand knowledge. You need that interactivity. So that area is little lacking on television. But having said that, to have that initial level, the foundation, the Guru TV, Nanasa TV, Dialogue, and Ministry of Education, these things are giving a lot of knowledge. And on the other hand, something else these TV channels should improve, even our TV channel, is that apart from giving, because a lot of demand is coming when we ask parents and all that, even through Dialogue, we are getting feedback. They want us to do programs on grade 5 maths, A-level physics, stuff like that. But we want to do more programs on, maker space and giving new things and all that. So again, I think TV channels can do more stuff on those, where we can change people's mindset. I think there's great opportunity there. Again, the problem would be on-demand knowledge and the interactivity, which is lacking in the TV channels.
Yeah, so agreeing to points Hasitha made, we have quite a few, also the other thing is the two major Dialogue and the SLT, the two major cable TVs, which is there. Again, doing this broadcasting. Now, say, when you go on the analog normal broadcasting, a lot of kids, or the reach is very high. But again, these channels has the option of you can take it on demand. But again, the coverage get limited because so many people have connection of the Dialogue TV and the POTV what it is. And also, Minister of Education, to my understanding, looking at these videos to be taken in and keep it in the platform for on demand. Again, that limitation comes in. So, at Hasitha very correctly said, the interactivity goes missing, but on a very crisis situation like COVID, you're optimizing the time, you can do a one-way communication, but you will not have the greatness of that interactivity and everything, but at least it will serve some amount of purpose, which is that communication can be done. So I think there are quite a bit of channels has been, or channels were increased during the COVID time, to my understanding, and they're looking at creating that on-demand part, but on-demand part again go to the same question we have been talking about, limitations what we have.
Sifan had another question. We have just about 10 minutes more, ladies and gentlemen. So we need to wrap up by 9. Sifan, by 5, sorry.
So this relates to something Dr. Sujata said about curriculum and syllabi reform, and even Hasitha mentioned something about reform taking time. So there's a sort of context to this where we maybe sort of plan education saying in this many years time we need this many engineers, this many doctors, this many customer service people, and that kind of long-term planning worked to some extent in the past because the skill sets were not very dissimilar and we could project those requirements. But with the fourth industrial revolution, we can't really say. We know we'll need doctors and engineers, but we don't really know what kind of professionals or skill sets we will need 10, 15 years down the line. And the traditional model of setting the syllabus where there is a long period of data gathering, then they do a pilot, then they run the pilot for 5 years, then they get the feedback, then they roll it out. That we don't have time to do that kind of approach. We'll always be playing catch up. And also the thing is that we needed to do that approach when we had to depend on teachers trained by the system and textbooks published by the system. And one of the things with ICTs, we don't have to depend on that anymore, right? And I don't have to wait for the NIE to figure out a syllabus and say this particular software tool is going to be something that's important to use, because I can just Google around for what tool are people using to solve this problem, realize it's there, and just start using it. So I don't need to wait for somebody to put this into the syllabus, define assessment standard, and all of those things. So I think part of the thing is that this concept of curriculum needs to become much more loosely defined, much more customizable and flexible according to the kind of problems people feel they need to solve. And there's also sort of a capacity constraint. Like if you take the total number of subjects we have in our local O-level and A-level system, it's way less than what the London system can do because they have more people and more money to do that thing, right? And we will never be able to catch up on that because we don't have the resources as a country to do that. But we don't need to play the game on those terms. We don't need to define this is the science syllabus, or this is the IT syllabus, or this is the history syllabus anymore, because people don't have to depend on the syllabus to access the knowledge. Right? It's just available out there if we can provide the access at a cheaper cost. So, and while there are benefits of centralizing the way education is run, it shouldn't necessarily mean that we standardize it, that everybody has to go through the same education experience, and rather we should allow people to have different experience. And one of the biggest barriers to that is that we have so much emphasis on the standardized exams. So, I mean, even though the exam results are not very useful for anything other than getting into university, we still, I mean, we won't even hire somebody to be a security guard if they haven't passed their A-levels, even though their A-levels has nothing to do with the ability to be a security guard. And so we need to dismantle the system of high-stake exams. For example, if you pass A-level, you can sit an admission test by the university, and that is run by the university, customized to that course of study. So rather than just trying to get some absurd Z score, people would have to think about what do I want to do for higher education and prepare for the admission test for that program of study. So then A-level doesn't become such a high stakes thing, and then people might actually pursue other learning opportunities that are available for them through IT.
We have just time for just two more quick questions, Sanka and then Niresh. We have about 9 minutes more before we close. Sanka, quick, make it quick, please.
I'm sorry, I think I might have accidentally.
Niresh?
Just a quick observation, Dr. Tara. I think a huge amount of material was covered here, and whatever strategies and programs are put in place, finally, it all boils down, I believe, to the teachers, and it's very important that the teachers should undergo continuous training and be kept aware and participate in all this, because they are the ones who will ultimately execute it. This connects up with what Dr. Sujata said about the demand side aspect of it, because that is, the feedback of the teachers is very important.
Januka, a quick comment from you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Quick comment to Hasitha. Now, you showed us some really great examples of what these teachers are doing in schools, giving, driving learning in these isolated spots. But is there a scalable issue here? Because examples of these have always been there in Sri Lanka, in my view. It's just that, they haven't been implemented at the national level. So is there a barrier to implementing this sort of teacher training at national level?
Okay, so if you talk about teacher training, that's a whole different story. So if you ask me about these kind of experiences or these kind of examples scaling out to other areas, there can be, there are obviously various barriers. One can be the infrastructure, the devices and all that. But again, I want to highlight the purpose. Now, some of these are, or rather a lot of these things are implemented because they have this interest to do these things. Going beyond the normal way of doing things, they have the interest, so they do that. But there's no purpose and the benefit that they are getting by doing these things, rather than people coming and saying, yeah, you are doing something great. So to get something like this, so you talk about digital transformation. To get a digital transformation a success, you have to run that transformation, and you have to make sure that people realize the benefit of the transformation. Once you complete that cycle, they'll do more work on the transformation. They do more work in this change. So for us to realize that entire cycle to make it sustainable, I think there's work to do, starting with giving the space inside, again, as I said, the policy, the reforms and all that. There's a purpose to do these things. Then they realize, because currently, because of they get a computer lab, maybe they have to use the computer lab. But there's no real kind of a like a thing. Then okay, I use this, then it will make my life easier. I can finish my syllabuses quicker. So there should be some kind of benefit, at least in this immediate level. Otherwise, it won't be successful. Apart from, I'm telling all these, apart from the obvious issues like devices and all that.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else for a final comment? Sujata, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I think I'm still thinking about, how do you get some indicators? And, I think we have an opening, and, I think I like to give the last word to Hasitha, we first start to focus on the education. So if we develop, 5 indicators, first 2 has to be, about how student-centered, how is there space in the schools for just generally not using technology, but for creativity and that kind of activity. And to answer actually Januka's question, is there any barriers? I think there was an answer in Hasitha's response earlier, because the teacher said, we can't continue this anymore, but we had to cover the syllabus. So we know the education ministries, that seems to be like a necessary condition, for integration of ICT to change the curriculum to the assessments. But I think we need to really push on both sides, because I really find during COVID, what I found is, I like to bring the inequity issue again. I realized how much the elite, how much our children, our friends' children, the elite children, how much education they're getting outside of the school. So I think there's a real equity issue. That's one reason to get ICTs into the schools. And then how do we make them use them for more creative purposes? Then we have to get in parallel the change in the curriculum. So I think if we're about ICT integration, I think we need both kinds of indicators. So this is a valuable lesson I learned here, particularly, thanks to Hasitha for bringing that ICT in education, that we should, look at the education. So again, I think really getting some indicators and pushing on them, because otherwise government has a lot of, incentives, just keep saying we are doing this, but how is it being felt by the children and the schools? I think we need to focus on that. That's tough.
In addition to what you said, is there anything else that came out from this discussion that we from EFSL can suggest, since we will be doing a set of recommendations to the ministry and to government in whatever department, to the scalability issue, what Januka said. So here we have pockets of extremely creative teachers, interested students, lovely initiatives, but there's nothing to say that the same cannot be available in other parts of the country, because we really don't know, simply because they may not have the opportunity. So is there anything to add to what you said, Sujata, which can go into our set of recommendations or a policy report that we intend writing?
Yeah, I wish others could also maybe send their suggestion, but what you said, I think digital literacy, we need to measure somehow. Some of the schools should be forced to get even a simple measure. I think digital literacy is a good one. It's a very simple one. All you need is children to, I think that's something we could push, say in the interim, while they're changing the curricula, while the ICT infrastructure is happening, I think they're going to push each other. We need to get at least a simple measure which forces schools to at least get beyond, connect the ICTs to the curriculum. I think digital literacy is a good way to go, I think.
And perhaps to give them an indicator as to how to measure the digital literacy, but that is a question that's going to come back to us. Kerala, which has 100% literacy, we have something like 93 or 96%. But Kerala, one of the things they did despite their 100% literacy, they saw this huge gap between the literacy and digital literacy. So that is the gap they aimed, they pushed to fill. Not that they have done it completely, but they are taking a valiant effort to do that. So maybe Sujata and everybody else can suggest how we could measure digital literacy with the tools we currently have available within our constraints, and that incorporate it into a national general assessment or something to that effect.
Actually, we can, because you can just use the school computer lab. Just one exercise everybody has to do: go to the internet, find something, you know, does green tea make you, you know, less fat? Right? Some simple question like that. Go to the internet, find the information. At different levels, you can give difference. You know, dolphins different from fish. Why is that? So they just at least one, every child, if you get them to do one exercise, at least they get to use that, because we have to start somewhere. You know, I think something digital literacy is, that's how we define it. You know, can somebody search the information, find what's good and bad, and then synthesize it and then present it. I think that's a simple exercise. We tried that actually in a school. So something like that, we need to propose something simple, I think, for start.
Great. Thank you very much, Sujata. Thank you very much, everybody. We started at 2:30 and we're stopping at 5 as promised. We really welcome, and we are thoroughly encouraged by the interest that you have shown, the contributions made, especially by our speakers, plus everybody else. And what we aim to do once we get the report finalized and our rapporteur with compiling the proceedings of today, like what Sujata said, we aim to make it a very short document so that we could present it to the Ministry of Education, plus where else we are advised to present it to. So towards that end, if you have any contributions to make, your expertise, your interests, your ideas are more than welcome. And we'll be really happy to stay connected with you on this particular topic, because we feel very passionate about it. And we'd like to continue this dialogue further with you all and whoever else you can recommend that can contribute it towards this. So thanks very much once again. And with that, we'll close this policy dialogue and we will keep you informed of our next events. Thank you, everybody.